Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to the community education series here at the Countryside YMCA. We are in person here in Lebanon, Ohio. We're also on the Zoom with Dr. Chin with folks local, regional, national, and internationally. So we have a big reach. But thank you for spending your time here with us tonight. We hope this is good information and education for you. The schedule is on the table, so you could look out and see what's coming next. I'm Maria Sulcer. I'm an outreach specialist at the Lindner Center. I go out to grow the awareness for all the treatment services that we do at the Lindner Center. Before I turn it over to Peter White, I always like to give you a overview of the Lindner Center. The Lindner Center is in Mason, Ohio. And just to let those know online, we're about roughly 30 miles north of downtown Cincinnati, Ohio, just to let you know where we are at the moment. And the Lindner Center is not too far from here in Mason, Ohio, near a large amusement park called Kings Island. That's always the landmark that we give. What I like to do is just give you an overview of the treatment services at the Lindner Center. We've got 80 beds. We have a continuum of care, and what that looks like would be 16 bed units for inpatient, crisis stabilization. We do partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient for addiction and co-occurring. We have a full outpatient practice, psychiatry, psychologists, nurse practitioners, therapists, social workers. We also have neuromodulation, which is for treatment-resistant depression, electroconvulsive therapy, and TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation. We have a full continuum for eating disorders, inpatient, partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient, and the Harold C. Schott eating disorders team. As well, we have 2 residential units, and this is where the reach does go. International, national, local, and regional. Our residential unit. One is called Williams House. It's a comprehensive diagnostic. Williams House is where we're doing stabilization. We're doing medication management, and also we can do detox on that unit. We're stabilizing the individual, and we are evaluating what's going on. And then the other unit is called Sipsey House, and it's where we're doing comprehensive diagnostic assessment. We're surrounding an individual with a team, and we're sorting out what's going on. Psychiatrist, psychologist, social worker. We really want to see what is going on. They may have diagnosis, they may not, and we're going to sort out and really find out what's going on. Those are more short-term stays. We're not your long-term residential. But I think we do really good work at stabilizing and also figuring out what's going on for individuals, and then referring them out to the network of hope within the community and the country. We also have rapid access service, which is something folks that really do need to get in to see a psychiatrist and they're having to wait to see one. They can make an appointment 2 afternoons a week. It is an out-of-pocket program, but they get the full assessment with the psychiatrist and a social worker. They need medication, they will receive that. They can come back for 3 bridge appointments during the time they're waiting to get into a psychiatrist. So it's not their ongoing psychiatrist. It was created about 3 or 4 years ago to help bridge that gap of people waiting. But again, it is out of pocket, but it'd be like going to the ER and you've got some copay. Your mental emotional health is as important as our physical health as well. That's the overview, and I'm ready to turn it over to Peter White, LPCC, part of the staff at the Lindner Center of Hope. He's been working there for 7 years. He's been in the field for 30 years. And is going to be teaching us tonight about supporting our loved ones with mental illness. So I'll hand it over.
Thank you very much, Marie. Much appreciated. Marie and I started working together when I actually joined the Lindner Center when we had started Hope Center North which was our methadone and Suboxone clinic out in North Lebanon. And it makes me think one of the really nice things about the Lindner Center is the stewardship of the Lindners and the board members. And they're very dedicated interest to where treatment programming and treatment happens best with involvement, with stakeholder involvement, community involvement, community back and forth. Does that make sense? So I think in fact, their willingness to be advocates around the idea of bringing medication assisted treatment, methadone and Suboxone to the area speaks to, yes, this is a major healthcare issue. Major healthcare issue for individuals and families, major healthcare issues for communities. And we need to be proactive in the engagement of the successful addressing of our behavioral health care issues on lots of different levels. So wonderful institution to be part of, wonderful to be here at events like this. All right. I tend to remain conversant. I'm happy to invite questions at any point from people here, any from folks on the OWL. Happy to take keep it as a conversation because then we know it's relevant. Then I know I'm addressing what you're experiencing, questions, challenges. We tend to learn together much better than we just learn hearing one simple message. So feel free to keep it open, though there will be an official question and answer period at the end if you'd rather just keep quiet. Let me start by asking folks, who here thinks of themselves or has a loved one who is coping with a mental illness? Show of hands. Okay, near 100%. That makes sense. And I don't know exactly what response would look like online, but near 100%.
It's hard to hear you.
Under
Yeah.
possibly a couple other chairs, nothing. I'll come out here as far as I can. There. Is that air conditioning?
Yeah. The
You wanna- Sorry, misplace you, but anyway.
They're having more than two.
I don't think we got the microphone working.
No, there's no microphone.
I tend to enunciate pretty well. If I drift off and I start to mumble. Can't hear you. Who here themselves or any attachment to any loved one with a substance use issue? Okay, again, certainly 80 to 90%, maybe not 100%. Right? So it's funny, we often find it difficult to talk about mental health care. We often find that we worry about stigma, judgment, misunderstanding. And yet here we all are with perfect familiarity to mental health concerns. I'll mainly use the term behavioral health because for me, that covers anything that you think of as a mental health illness or mental diagnosis. And just like anything else in the ICD-9, a big book that doctors and nurses and coders use to discuss an illness. Well, every mental health condition will be in there, every substance use condition will be in there, right? Which gets to my first and probably my most important point. And that is that behavioral health care is healthcare. This makes sense? The reason that it's 100% familiarity with behavioral health care concerns is that it's because behavioral health is healthcare. Okay, folks buy that? Folks, do folks notice, oh gee, well, no, there's a healthcare thing. There's asthma and taking care of my broken care leg and, and then there's this other thing. This thing where someone's hearing voices. Someone's mood is so bad, they're not getting out of bed, or someone's struggling with a substance, and that's different. And I would argue, if you really look at it, they're not different. They're just healthcare issues. A certain set of complications with behavioral health care, but still fundamentally the exact same thing, because lots of healthcare issues have certain particularities, certain things that need to be addressed uniquely. Right? Folks buying this, behavioral health care is healthcare. That's why we're here. It's common. It is what it is. Okay? And just like any healthcare problem, your behavioral health care concern for you or your loved one is sometimes mild, is sometimes more moderate, and is sometimes severe. Just like your healthcare moves along a spectrum. I have a touch of arthritis, my knee can act up. I have more significant arthritis, it's starting to impair my ability to move around. I have severe arthritis, it is hard for me to function on a basic level. Healthcare moves along spectrums from mild to moderate to severe. And this is the exact same with behavioral health care. And I think we want to note that, again, if we look in the ICD-9, how do we diagnose behavioral health care issues? We diagnose them along a spectrum, mild, moderate, and severe. This can be important because it helps us appreciate, again, the universality of the issue. And it also helps appreciate there's no magic bullet where a behavioral health care problem is not happening and one is happening. Does that make sense? If someone has a little bit of a drinking concern for you, a little bit too much alcohol, a little too often, someone might say to them, I think you're alcoholic. How do you think that person will respond to that statement? No, I'm not alcoholic. Similar thing, we're not out about as much. We don't seem to smile the same. We don't, someone says, you're depressed. Someone says, I'm not depressed. Okay? There's no magic line where a behavioral health care problem starts and where it doesn't exist. Behavioral health occurs along the spectrum, just like every other health care concern you have. Does that make sense? If we want to fight stigma, if we want to fight misunderstanding, if we want to fight judgment, if we want to fight shame, I think it's very useful for us to just keep backing off to what are we coping with? We're coping with a healthcare issue. Your loved one's healthcare issue could be extremely distressing and extremely impactful for them. It may be extremely distressing and extremely impactful for you. But if we keep backing up to this is a healthcare issue, I think we leave ourselves in the best place to cut stigma, cut isolation, cut shame and guilt, and get effective at addressing the nature of the issue. Folks find this? Okay, cool. Because behavioral health care is a healthcare issue, most of our behavioral health care problems are chronic.
Okay, fine.
Let me know if that's a question. Most behavioral health care conditions, chronic, not degenerative. Okay. What does chronic mean? Or what does, when I say the word chronic, you have a chronic condition, what comes up for most people?
Continual.
Okay, continual. What else? Sorry. Recurring, good. Ongoing. Okay, good. Those are pretty accurate. Good. So chronic, when you think of it, is just a word for time. Okay. Continual. Yeah, chronic comes from your chronic, whatever it's called. Right? Just a word that means time. We have nice responses here, picking up. Well, that just means it's ongoing. That just means you have the risk of relapse patterns, right? I think what often happens is we mistake the word chronic with the word degenerative. Okay? Degenerative means you have a condition that will worsen over time with a certain degree of inevitability. This makes sense? Behavioral health conditions are chronic. but they are not continued, but they are not degenerative. They do not get worse and worse. They can get worse and worse, most likely if you are not doing the right things about it. But they do not continually get worse and worse. This is important to consider because you can have severe, long-lasting, ongoing, relapse-prone conditions. But the still reality is nearly all behavioral health conditions are available to stabilizing and improving. Okay? We often feel like we want to be careful about the idea of a diagnosis being an experience of being condemned. A diagnosis being an experience of it will never get better. I would argue that that is pretty rarely the case. All right. Most importantly, just like with any healthcare issue, behavioral health problems are not personal or moral failures. Does anyone here or any of their loved ones have a chronic healthcare condition, asthma, diabetes, lupus? Okay. When that person talks about asthma, diabetes, lupus, arthritis, do you feel like, oh, why would they do that? You feel like, oh, I wonder what they did that brought that on. You think, oh, yeah, well, coming from that kind of family, what would you expect? Okay. Behavioral health care is healthcare, and healthcare is not a personal or moral decision. It can frequently be that you may need to bring the best parts of your personhood to address your healthcare issue well. But the nature of the problem itself is not personal, is not a failure. Our folks here had to live with, for themselves or for their loved ones, the experience of them feeling judged, the experience of them feeling less than, the experience of information suggesting that they have done something wrong, that they are less than, that they are flawed, that they are responsible for their behavioral health care condition. Right? A, it's unfair and it's hurtful. B, it never helps with accuracy of what's the best thing to do here. Does this make sense? Lindner Center, when we get an evaluation, we tend to get decent marks. And one of the things the evaluators will tend to say is, oh, everyone was so nice and respectful. And I always think, okay, that's good. Where are you going? Where people aren't experiencing healthcare staff as nice and respectful.
ERs.
Is that
ERs.
ERs, right? Right? If you've been anywhere where you haven't been treated with some basic kindness and respect around your healthcare issue, you most likely are very impacted on, well, that stunk. That stunk as an experience, and that stunk for me in terms of trying to figure out what to do with my healthcare issue. Okay. It's not a personality thing. It's not a moral thing. Now, behavioral health care issues, substance use issues, again, because of the symptom impact, are sometimes not necessarily bringing the best parts out of people. But please keep backing up to, at its root, it is a healthcare issue. There is a way to try to approach it to be as effective as possible. Cool. Questions, comments so far? All right. Folks buying this? Okay. Cool. Behavioral health care is healthcare, therefore problems will worsen if not treated or addressed. Okay. What's the worst thing to do? Hey, you look like you have some depressive symptoms. No, I'm fine. Okay. Hey, gee, you seem to be drinking 3 nights a week versus 1 night a week. Is there something? No, it's fine. Down in church, like, yeah, my uncle, that's what an alcoholic was like. Right? The worst thing to do with a behavioral health care issue is not address it. But again, if we just approach it as, this is a healthcare issue, it may be mild, it may be whatever, but let's address it. Because if we don't, it tends to worsen, just like any healthcare issue. Okay? Who has a healthcare thing that they probably should attend to before it gets worse? This could be dentistry, this can be, this could be podiatry, this could be a gazillion things. Okay, it's a healthcare thing, I should address it. Why? Because problems tend to improve when treated. And with all behavioral health care, treatment is available and recovery is available. Now, I'm not saying treatment's available as in if you call to get something, you'll get a wait list. I'm not talking about that availability, right? I understand the great frustrations, which many of us have, in access to good health care. But the availability of it needs to be evident. Hey, if you do something about this healthcare issue, it will probably help you. Might not be the first time. Right? Might be that you notice it being very effective for a little bit, then less effective. Might be notice that you just need a little bit now and you need more later. But still, it's backing up to, this is a healthcare issue. And if you address it, you can stabilize, you can get better and better and better. So, we're not naive on how long or complicated the process might be, but we retain from the evidence of medicine that the great majority of behavioral health care issues, actually, I don't know a behavioral health care issue. Treat it, address it, find what you need, resources, recovery support. Behavioral health care gets stabilized and then better. Has anyone here had to work with someone or loved one themselves of coping with hopelessness towards behavioral health care? Does that make sense? Hopelessness is understandable. I would argue hopelessness is irrational. When you look at behavioral health care, hopelessness doesn't quite make sense because hopelessness will suggest to you it is not going to get better. And that is not true. That doesn't mean chronicity is hard. It doesn't mean relapse can be extremely frustrating. It doesn't mean boy is tough when one problem seems to drop on another problem on another. But that's not hopelessness. Okay? There are effective treatments for all behavioral health care conditions. They are available. Recovery process, and recovery is just a nice general term for anything that helps you identify, support, and continue in your improvement process. Okay? So treatment is one thing in healthcare, right? What's another example in any other thing you do that helps you stabilize, improve, and keep improving in your healthcare? What's an example of recovery? I'll give you. Go ahead. Support groups, excellent. Physical therapy, right? Yeah, here's your physical therapy. Keep doing this. Okay, this is good. Okay, good. Keep doing it. Now come once a week. Now come once a month. Now just do this at home. Okay, that's a recovery process. What are we standing? What's this building? We're in a YMCA, by the way, anyone who knows that. Okay. Right? What are some of the things that you do for the recovery of your health care here at the Y? Exercise, you move. Meditation, good.
Engage with others.
Engage with others, you get social. Specific peers or general peers. People who are interested in what's it like to maintain my health on a global perspective. Because if I'm maintaining my health, if I'm doing good things for my health, I'm going to be doing good things for my mental health. Because behavioral health care is health care. Treatment, recovery, always available. Not conveniently, not easily, not cheaply, none of that, I'm not, right, but it's always available. Like any other healthcare condition.
Peter,
Yes, sir.
there is a question in the chat.
Let's go.
They'd like to know, what if your loved one isn't getting better with treatment? How can one continue to be hopeful?
Very good. So we'll cover that in a couple of different ways. The best thing to do if treatment isn't working is keep changing treatment, keep looking for options, right? And I know that you can run to what feels like the frustration of options. But treatment is, I've been at it for 30 years. The number of options available for treatment, even from 30 years ago. Does that make sense? I started out with Prozac. I was around when Zoloft first came out. Okay, I was around, I remember where I was standing when I heard the word Zyprexa. Zyprexa was the first popularized atypical antipsychotic. I remember the doctor talking, right? And Zyprexa came out. Now we have Zyprexa, Abilify, Braylon, Seroquel. Does this make sense? 5 ends, right? Okay, so sorry about the frustrations of unsuccessful treatment after unsuccessful treatment. That definitely happens. But keep looking, keep going, keep finding. If it's not working, it doesn't work. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything other options besides putting on them on medication and just saying, here, take your medication? So there isn't, we don't have a system set up for that. For somebody to have a mental illness, and I know that from practical experience, and I've been through it, put on medication and do nothing.
Well, yeah, right. We don't want to do that. We want to treat.
But that, no, I'm saying is, I would like to see my person totally off medication and not dependent on that, and using other resources for his recovery.
Okay, other resources, absolutely. Expand their recovery. Excuse me. The medication, well, you need medication if you need medication. Medications treat symptoms. Right? A medication treats a symptom. A medication will treat a symptom successfully, not so successfully, or not successfully at all.
I think it goes back to the therapy thing. Person's not doing the other extra things and
Yeah,
then
but
continuing
they gotta be in
those
place
things.
and cost money. What does it amount to win for, versus out in Massachusetts, this is $20,000 a month.
I understand lots of great frustration in accessing of services, of recovery, of whatever. But it is available, right? And like you said, good note, right? The medications treat symptoms. They don't cure. You get into non-curative aspects of healthcare conditions. Right? They don't cure, and they don't define what success or lack of success is. They're part of symptom management. If you have a symptom that makes you get worse and worse, more and more distress, more and more dysfunction, and nothing else helps, and medication is successful at helping, you most likely need a medication. Right? We have lots of other things, and medication is not helping. Well, that's up to you, I suppose. Right? Some people need medication because without it, symptom management gets so poor. The distress levels become terrible, and the dysfunction becomes so problematic that the pathway of getting better is going to be lost. Medications treat symptoms. This can be an essential part of a treatment plan, a helpful part of a treatment plan, or it's up to you. Does that make sense? Okay. Because treatment and recovery are available, not convenient, but available, we have our focus on hope. Hope is not naivete. Right? Hope is not, oh, it's gonna be a better day tomorrow. Hope is, it can stay the same. It might get worse, but it also might get better. Okay? Hope is simple. Hope is not naive. Hope is stepping away from hopelessness. This is unbearable and it's never going to get better. There is hope. And what I would argue, because there is hope, there is expectation. Okay? If things can stabilize, improve, get better, we do approach clients, loved ones, each other, and ourselves with the expectation that we engage life in a way that will facilitate hope and avoid the kind of distress that brings on hopelessness. Does that make sense? Hope is not just, oh, you're going to get better. Hope is you can get better. So let's do what we need to help you get better. All right? That is not a judgment. That is not an attack. That is not an abandonment. That is a basic orientation we have around it, because there is a thing that can help. I expect you, loved one, to go get into it. Okay? Hope leads towards the expectation of, let's get treated, let's get recovered. Is that okay with folks? Okay. I got a healthcare issue. I might have a bad one, yes?
I have a question.
Mhm.
So in my own experience and the experience of others around me, how do we get providers to understand when treatment is not working?
Yeah.
And it's affecting us in a negative way, instead of dismissing what we're experiencing and going.
Yep.
That has been my personal experience, that a lot of the providers are not listening to patients.
Mhm.
And the patients therefore lose trust to the
Yeah.
provider.
Mhm.
And then that's where the feeling of hopelessness can come in, because if this person won't listen to me with this medication or whatever the situation is,
Mhm.
how can I actually get treated?
Absolutely. So the question for folks at homes is, at home, what do you, pardon me, remote. The question is, what do you do when your treatment providers, if your experience is multiple treatment providers who aren't hearing you when your treatment plan isn't working, right? And that certainly happens, and I would go straight back to hope. Guess what? The way the treatment plan isn't working and the way you address me as if there's no other thing that can happen, that feels hopeless to me. Because it's a suggestion that I'm not being heard, and Pete, you're not exploring pathways to other ways to feel better and function better. Okay, now this comes with the caveat of a treatment provider may need to say, I know you would like to do this, but because of this indication or that indication, I can't offer this. Right? That can certainly happen. Treatment providers might need to frustrate you with what you're asking either has a complication or doesn't appear to be effective or whatever. I'm sorry, I can't offer you that. But absolutely, you should be heard with, okay, so what's going to be my treatment plan now? Right? Doctors, if we're talking about conditions that don't have cures, we know that doctors don't have all the answers, right? We're talking about conditions that are continual, that are ongoing. We know that your treatment plan might need to keep evolving. We know that if, sometimes it goes on, sometimes we're coping better, sometimes we're not coping better. We may need to be addressed with different levels of care, different ideas. So that does need to be the basic orientation of a treatment provider. Possibly, because I, as a provider, I think this is going to work. I don't think that's going to work. I don't believe that's going to work at all. That should always be the presentation of a provider of, if this isn't working, let's try this. That's what I would say. Start with, you provider, you're making me feel hopeless because I'm not getting options. I think it's a very appropriate thing to say. if I, as a therapist, if I hear concerns from previous providers, it's typically that they just talked at me of things to do to make me feel better. And I did them and I didn't feel better, and then there was nothing else to do. Right? So then, yeah, I just felt bad because I did what they told me and I didn't feel better. Right? So that's not good. Because there is something else to try. Or, you know, I wasn't really given any information about what I was experiencing and what are the potential options and what might be helpful. I wasn't partnering with my provider around what may be the elements that might be helpful to different concerns at different times. That makes sense? I would hit them with, okay, you're making me feel hopeless. And we hold on to hope because it is available. And if it is available, our expectations, ourselves, our loved ones, is let's go get at it. Who has a healthcare issue where they are avoiding getting at it? Getting around to it, right? Who here has the expectation of yourself? Do this. Right? I had my last colonoscopy about 2 years ago, maybe. My first polyp. So I have to schedule my next one in 5 years versus 7 years. Who do you think is going to be more on exactly when 5 years comes up, and that should get rescheduled? Who's going to be more on, me or my wife? That makes sense. My wife will be good with the expectation of this is a wonderful opportunity to prevent colon cancer. Get on it. Don't mess around with this. Why would you mess around with this? Right? I would probably notice it like year number 6 or so or something, but yeah, Carrie, it's probably already in her Gmail, you know. So hope and expectation have to go hand in hand. Hope is not naive. Okay. Cool. Questions, comments? Good. All right, so we started getting, people are asking some questions around this. Healthcare problems tend to invite denial. Who here likes to have a healthcare problem? Okay. Who here would like to get a chronic healthcare problem? Okay. Does anyone for themselves or their loved one have a healthcare condition that is hard for them to fully absorb, hard for them to acknowledge? This is a problem, and this is the extent of the problem, and this is what I should do to go address that problem. Okay? For ourselves and our loved ones, it is common. This is the problem, this is the extent of the problem, this is what I should do about the problem. How many people have been a little underaware of those at times? That's a denial process. Right? Healthcare problems invite denial, the declining to acknowledge symptoms and or the consequences of symptoms. Hey, you haven't gotten out of bed for 4 days. Are you going to lose your job? No, my boss thinks I'm great. I'll go in tomorrow. Okay, that's concerning. Does this make sense? Denial is the failure to acknowledge the symptom, the problem, and the potential consequences for the problem. Yeah. I know that I keep barking everybody's head off, but you know, people know I'm a hothead. It's a denial process. Denial we get used to, particularly around substance use. There's certain reasons for that. But again, denial is inherent with healthcare because we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to have to accommodate a limitation. We don't want to have to acknowledge we may need to put time and energy into something to successfully address a healthcare concern. So denial is common with all healthcare problems. It has a particular element that happens with behavioral healthcare, and then it has a particular elements that goes on with substance use concerns. But it's all just for denial. But don't want to have to look at the nature of the issue, and what needs to be done about the issue. Okay, folks feel like they're familiar with denial for themselves or others relative to healthcare? All right. So what happens as a loved one if our loved one is in denial about their healthcare issue? It tends to leave us with unwanted choices, right? Has anyone ever been referred to as an enabler? Okay, you're an enabler, right? Don't enable it, you're an enabler. Right? I think enabling gets a really bad rap. Because the simple reality is, if this person is not attending to an issue and they are getting sicker, more distress, more dysfunction, or the next person next to them, their loved one, is now left with a very difficult choice, full of unwanted options, right? The fundamental problem, I am either going to compensate, to cover, to join in with the denial and cover, right? Or I'm going to leave the person to suffer the consequences of their not addressing the problem accurately and adequately. Does this make sense? If you're a loved one, and this happens with all healthcare, happens with lots of stuff, but healthcare, behavioral healthcare in particular. If you are off the rails, I have the option of either you helping you stay on the rails or seeing the consequences of what happens when you fall off the rails, which is, can be pretty dreadful, yes.
So you're saying there is a difference between enabling and abandonment? Is that what you're saying?
Enabling and
Abandonment.
abandonment. Is there a difference between enabling and abandonment? No, I think they're on the same spectrum. What do I do? What do I do? But let's get back to, let's be kind to the person who what they're really dealing with is someone who is not accurately or adequately addressing a healthcare issue. Right? What are some things that enablers help people do?
Stay sick.
Stay sick, but what else? Has any enabler ever saved someone's life? Okay, has any enabler ever saved someone from jail, prison, homelessness? Okay. It can certainly be, you're starting to get into a pattern where you're now no longer helping a person. There's nihilism, but let's be fair. Enabling is also frequently going to keep someone fundamentally sick.
Many times can you do it?
How many times can you do it? And that's the engagement of recovery. It's just the engagement of recovery. Nobody gets to answer that for you. Does that make sense? No one gets to tell you, hey, what you do is wrong. Yes.
I guess I have the question from the standpoint of mental health. When the person doesn't really register there's a problem. And it's not denial, it's just they don't understand.
Oh, lack of information, lack of understanding.
No, like being catatonic,
Oh, okay.
where they just really don't understand.
Mhm.
And, you know, I think that that is very difficult as a family.
Yeah.
To be able to say, this is chemical, this is more than just behavior.
Sure.
And so, you know, that exists
Yeah.
from the standpoint of that gambit.
Questions, comment around, gee, what's the complexity when someone is starting to really in a way lose basic competency? Right?
Yeah.
There's a reason we have healthcare proxies. There's a reason, right? Charlotte Weddington in Northern Kentucky, when I was in Northern Kentucky, she's the one who got, laws. Casey's Law, thank you. She's the mother of Casey and got Casey's Law going, which is very interesting, right? Casey's Law in Kentucky, and there's a version in Ohio now, correct? Right? Casey's Law permits a loved one, it might need to be a family member, I forget, but permits a loved one to go to court to say, this person is so impaired in their substance usage, they at this moment cannot be permitted basic judgment. They can't be permitted the understanding. So what a judge orders, it says, okay, let's get this person. Let's get this person in for an evaluation. If you get a medical doctor and a substance use specialist to say, yep, this person is in critical danger, as in they may die the next few days, the next few weeks, without addressing substance use, you can take away that person's right to not be in substance use. The judge will say, you need to be in substance use program, or you can sit in jail, take a choice, because we need to keep you alive, right? So that in a way is one of the mechanisms we have to help the enabler keep someone alive and force treatment, because the situation is now critical. It's tough because many behavioral health concerns can be severe, and they can be severe for a long period of time. But, you know, by our civil liberties in this country, you get to have a severe problem for a long period of time, and no one can force you to do anything. The line between severe and critical is you or somebody else is in imminent danger of grievous harm or death. 24 hours, 48 hours, that's critical. Short of that, we're at severe, which can be powerfully different. I get it. It's not critical. It's short of critical. We're left in the place of it. This person is in denial. They're not doing what they need to do. And I either need to help them or start to create boundaries. And that's neither of those are wanted options. Does that make sense? What do you want your loved one to do when they're in denial? With that?
Want them to take accountability.
You want them to get out of denial and get into, I don't want them to get into hope with you. You can get better. You have a health care issue and you can get better. Come on, it's fine. I have a mild risk for colon cancer. It would be grievous of me to skip my colonoscopies in the future. I get that, but for the subject, my wife will be there saying, what are you talking about? You haven't scheduled your colonoscopy. You have the chance of making sure that you do not get sick. Don't beat yourself up for people being in denial and for you being grievously fearful. That's 100% fine. Okay. Denial leaves loved ones with unwanted choices, compensate for, or allow negative consequences to play out. That's tough. And I don't think anyone gets to judge an enabler. They get to say to an enabler, hey, I think the way that you're approaching this may not be the best for you or for them, or let's keep trying to bring in a different option or a third option or something. Right? We get to bring to people, hey, I see you stuck in your position. But we don't get to judge them. They're stuck with a real dilemma and a healthcare issue.
The question in the chat, Peter, is, are there keywords or language that a support person could use with their loved ones if whether they are in denial or the competency issue, to get them the help that they need?
Keywords, it's not simple. Great question. Keywords, your I statements, right? I am worried you're going to die. I see you suffering more and more. I and this household are suffering under your dysfunction. Those are all I statements. An I statement is not, I think you're being an idiot. That's not an I statement. Right? An I statement is from our experience. Right? You are You have symptoms, you have a major healthcare issue, you have a, right? So your I statements is the orientation of it. This is reality. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to make it personal. I'm not going to make it moral, but this is reality. And we need to deal with reality. So these are my I statements. Questions tend to help with defensiveness. Do you think it's okay the way you're behaving? Is there a reason you find it difficult to address a treatment that might be helpful to you? I understand it can be very hard to want to have to look at and accept these things. But can I help you? Tell me how to help you. Get to where you're addressing things accurately and honestly and helping yourself. I can be here. I statements, questions, and keep bringing it back to healthcare and hope and expectation. Okay? When you get shut down of all of that, sorry, that may certainly be the moment of, I need to take a break. I need to break, I may need to take a break now, I may need to take a break for a week, may need to take a break for the month. I hope I have explained to you. I am here, I'm available, I'm worried sick, I see this pathway out. If you can explain to me why we're not doing that, okay, I'll talk about that. But what I really need is for us to get into the expectation that things can get better. I statements, questions around healthcare and getting better. And yes, sorry, denial can look, blue heresy denial, it looks psychotic. Right? I get it. It's not quite psychotic, it's a version of extreme, but whatever, you're like, this is nuts. This is obvious, the nature of the problem and the possibility of the solution. Okay, yes, sir. Oh,
Okay. The question is there any specific behavioral health diagnosis with denial?
Interesting question. Any behavioral healthcare diagnosis where denial is more prevalent. So it's prevalent with the substance use disorders, I think, because to have a substance use problem, you have to go do something. All right, so hear me out. If you have major depression and you wake up, do you need to do anything to have the symptoms of major depression? Right? If you have an alcohol use problem and you wake up with an alcohol use problem, do you need to do something to have the alcohol use problem? So those behaviors that engage a lot of external behavior are the ones where we really tend to see the denial highlighted. Because the person's behavior throughout the day then frequently becomes the hiding of that behavioral healthcare problem. We can be in denial about any healthcare problem. Hey, you look horribly depressed. No, I'm okay. All right, but nothing big is going on. Hey, I think you're using cocaine again. Me? No. Yeah, you were in the bathroom for like 50 minutes and you just, you ran downtown for the third time today. You hate downtown. No, it wasn't it. But I went downtown because I did this or that. So what I would say is you see denial most evidently when there's a behavioral health problem that's getting enacted outward amongst us. That makes sense? I think eating disorders, I'm no eating disorders specialist, but eating disorders is another one. Hey, I think you need to eat something. I've eaten fine today. That's funny. I haven't seen anything different even in the house. Does that make sense? So again, the denial is not unique to substance use. It's not unique to behavioral, to external behavior disorders. We just see it so prevalent. Somebody has to go do something. Does that make sense? It's all the same denial. It hasn't switched creatures. It just creates a lot of chaos. Creates a lot of chaos, and a lot of distress for loved ones in those ways. Cool. Good question. Thank you. Yes, sir.
One more if I could. Actually, two, but the first one, excuse me, says medications do not seem to help our family member who has been diagnosed with major depressive disorder. If medications don't seem to help, does that mean he is actually not depressed?
Oh,
He acts this way with absolutely no motivation or caring for life. Lots of anxiety. His therapist quit because he did not care about taking any advice and was kicked out of his care group because he was not taking any group advice, but was just saying why advice, it won't work. He is a highly functioning autistic.
oh, okay, so complications there with two issues, autism and mood. Right? So here's the other thing. Who has one healthcare problem and only one healthcare problem? Who here has one healthcare concern, but otherwise is pretty sure they're 100% healthy? This makes sense? Behavioral healthcare is healthcare. Therefore, the majority of us noting, I have a really big thing that I'm worried about, and I have this other little chronic thing that does it, and I have this thing that pops up every now and then. Same thing with behavioral healthcare. Behavioral healthcare is going to tend to have lots of different things going on top of each other. Right? And that's just the complication of co-occurrence, dual diagnosis, however you want to say it. Right? I think it's my next slide real quick. Hold on. Nope. Still stuck on denial. So if the bad news, I'll cover a couple slides with this one, autism and depression. If the bad news is behavioral health disorders are chronic, and if we have one behavioral health disorder, we're vulnerable to other behavioral health disorders coming in. If you have a substance use disorder, there's a really good chance you have some depression or anxiety. If you have a autism use disorder, there's a chance you're going to struggle with some mood disorder. So the bad news is one makes us vulnerable to the other. The good news is, again, sorry, the treatment isn't working well now, but treatment and recovery remain available. And pretty typically across disorders, if you're doing one healthy thing effectively for one behavioral health problem, it is going to tend to be effective to another behavioral health problem. Okay. Anyone here ever come to the Y here to do things? And did they help a number of healthcare things? Okay. Exercise, what's a healthcare issue that exercise can help? Depression, what else? Cardiac issues. Joint issues. Makes sense. Do a lot of people with joint issues have cardiac issues and depression? Okay. The good news is one thing that you do successful for one behavioral health problem will tend to be helpful to the others. Okay. Anyone ever been to a 12-step meeting? Okay. You go to 12-step meetings, you will see people in a remarkable amount of distress and dysfunction. And you will also meet some of the happiest, most resilient people you're ever going to meet.
That's right.
That's right. That makes sense. Right? Why? Because you're looking at a set of people who have had to address substance use concerns and probably a lot of other concerns as well to successfully manage the substance use concern and lots of other things. Things that we do for one behavioral health problem tend to be helpful to another. So sorry about the interaction of the depression and the autism not working well. Keep looking for a provider who's hearing, right? Keep trying to get the engagement in some sort of recovery process that your loved one can start to notice some effectiveness with. But I get the frustration. Big one?
Case management would be helpful in that situation. They would kind of be that bridge
Oh,
between mental health
good.
and the activities.
Good case management programs,
I'm sorry. I couldn't
online
hear.
support, anything like that. Good, very good. All right,
I have one more if I could.
go ahead.
As a supporter for a loved one with a self-diagnosed mild depression,
Mhm.
how do we find the right provider? How do we know what type of provider is right for their situation? And the third part to this, is it best for the supporter to accompany the loved one on their first visit? to the healthcare.
Okay, good. So nice, simple question. The first one, often, particularly with the loved one's initiative or permission, right? So it's great if we can partner up with our loved one around, hey, let's go get your behavioral health care together, just like any other healthcare issue. Does that make sense? Now, if there's a reason that your partner wants privacy, your loved one wants privacy, okay, that's understandable. Let's go back to hope and expectation. Okay, cool, you can be private, you can go do your thing. But guess what? I need some mechanism by which to know you are actually doing it. Okay, a good example is release of informations. Has anyone ever been wrapped up in release of information stuff? Sign the release of information. The release of information permits communication between anybody, but in these instances, loved one and provider. Releases of information have a purpose. And one of the purposes you can put down on a release of information, a common one, is attendance and participation. I don't need to know everything that's going on in your session. I do need to know that you're going and that you're participating, that you have a treatment plan and that you're making some progress on your treatment plan. Oh, and one more thing. I'm really doubting that you're talking about this. So you need to permit me to call this person and say, hey, I'm worried about this, and this. Okay, so absolutely attend, particularly if your loved one wants you. If they have an initiative where, you know, they got a privacy thing, work with it, but work with it around, you know. I'm not here to invade privacy. We're not here to control. We're here to get into the expectancy of hope that you're going to go do the thing that helps you do the thing. Sorry, I answered, and I forgot the first part of the question. The self-diagnosed mild depression.
Yes, but the question is how do you find, like what? type
Oh,
of provider?
good question. When you want to find a good endocrinologist, what do? What's that? Ask around to the degree that you're willing, put it out there. Anyone run into a good therapist? Anyone run into a good support group? Anyone run into a good doctor? Ask around, find out. That makes sense. No magic to it. That's the other one, behavioral healthcare in particular, all healthcare. Who here likes doctors who are nice to them? Who here likes doctors that aren't nice?
Well, I just always say, they don't have to be my best friend, they just have to help me get better. So,
Good, right.
I mean, they should, be sympathetic, but, you know, it is what it is, like,
Yeah.
if they're gonna help me get better, and we're trying to do it.
Right, it's almost like if you have your primary care doctor, you kind of tend to want to be able to have some dialogue. If you have to have brain surgery, how important is it for you, for your brain surgeon to, you know, be a great guy or gal? You know what I mean? But in behavioral health care, most of us find, I need to work with somebody who's hearing me, who's listening to me, who's considering multiple different options. Right? So ask around online if you want the privacy thing. Find who's good. And keep shopping. Sorry if you're not having any successes, but keep shopping for successes. All right. Make sure we're good. Oh, okay, so how do we help? I just want to point these out, right? So that we know we're not crazy. And I'm just being careful about the word crazy. I don't want that to come up. But that crazy is we're uniquely flawed and something unique is going on. It's not that. Chronic distress is common for loved ones of people with health disorders. Okay, again, distress over time, unfortunately. We're often finding ourselves torn between reactivity and inactivity. You need help. You need help right now. We're going right now. That's fine. I'm sick. Don't call me again. I'm done with it. Right? Those aren't blame. Those are, oh, this isn't effective. This isn't effective in the treatment. And this is very difficult for me. Still, though, there's a range of responses that we can help. Again, the I statements, and these responses build skills and strike a balance between intervention and disengagement. Okay, no perfect balance for everyone. Balance is a shifting process of intervention and disengagement. Each relationship, each symptom, each, right? But we do want to note, we're gonna try and get as skillful as we can in our balance of expectancy. We should be able to do this so that we're not seeing this behavior. I can offer this much, I can't offer anything more. Right? That balance that we build is built around self-care. Okay? Self-care is a core skill that we need to get oriented and pretty good at to help with chronic distress, with the push-pull, with the how long, with the, right? And one tricky part of self-care is that self-care often involves the journey through the acceptance of the healthcare problem, the journey through the acceptance, the journey through the acceptance of how much dysfunction, disruption there is. And we have to grieve. We still have to plug into hope. Does that make sense? Self-care will be a number of things about taking good care of ourselves. Self-care around dealing with a healthcare condition and a behavioral healthcare condition, particularly as it gets more severe, particularly if it has those chronic elements, is often going to go through pathways of grief to get to hope. Does that make sense? Who here feels for themselves or for a loved one that they have noticed that they have to grieve through the process, that the process of acceptance is a long one, ups and downs, bumpy, right? Oh, this is just, okay. Other things that you'll tend to see as a loved one, the households of loved ones. Relationships get disrupted. We used to get along. They used to be so good with the kids. We used to be so social. Okay. Loss of roles and routines. I don't know where my partner went. How did it turn out that we have this kind of financial problem after we've had so much success? Right? Decay of communication. We just cross each other. Right? We barely talk to each other. If we're talking, we're yelling, or we're not talking. Disruption of social life and household stability. And lots of secrecy. Lots of denial will lead to secrecy. Not seeing eye to eye, not feeling an effective pathway towards help will lead to secrecy. Secrecy, loss, and fear. If you're experiencing this, stay hopeful. What are these? These are a sign that you're a loved one. Someone who's not successfully engaging a behavioral health problem. So be good to yourself. This isn't a judgment. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. This isn't, right? This is the side effect from the symptoms that aren't being effectively addressed. If you find yourself walking on eggshells, more and more isolated, right? Living in fear, feeling explosive, then feeling numb. Tell yourself, oh, this is about this issue not being addressed successfully. That's what's going on. Don't let me get stuck here. Don't let me judge myself. Don't let me own this. Let me keep getting back to somewhere there's hope. Somewhere there's expectancy for me and my loved one to stabilize and get better. Is this feeling familiar? This isn't get stuck here. This is notice it, own it. I never used to live in a house where you walk on eggshells. I don't want that house. I'm not going to live in that house. Okay? Because it's not healthy. It's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for anyone. So what do? We build our skills to stay healthy and intervene. We try to help our loved ones get motivated for treatment and recovery. That's the hope that we expect this. I'm sorry it's been so long. I do not blame you. I am not here to abandon you. I am here to say there's a pathway. We might not see it right now. Sorry that that last treatment place really stunk. But there is a way to get better, and we can do that. If you will let me join you do that, I would love to have joined you doing that. If you can't, then we'll have a different issue. But I'm here to get you motivated to get better. Become partners who see the issue accurately. Okay, so this is what we got. We got mild depression. Can I go with you to the meeting? I'd love to meet your doctor. I'd love to learn about it. Can we research this? Can we get a clear diagnosis? If we didn't get a clear diagnosis, should we get a different diagnosis? Right? Should we talk to someone else? Was that person a bit of a quack? Did you feel it? Right? See it accurately. Dr. Google's okay, but be careful. Right? Dr. Google has lots of great information on it. Just be careful that you hear a lot of stories on Dr. Google. Everybody's story is valid, but the best stories are the ones that have the most backing. That makes sense? I'm not saying everything's got to be research based. I'm just saying we revert to medicine or specialists to the just because they know it enough and they've seen it enough, and there is some research and there is some. So absolutely learn, grow, hear stories. Dr. Google's fine. And of course, any kind of support. If you get diabetes, do they tend to encourage you to go to diabetes classes? Right? Same thing with mental health. Do what you need. NAMI, one of the resources in the back. NAMI has its family to family. Do I have that right? Family
Yeah,
connection.
it's
Family?
a 8-week course.
8-week course, right? Free, I believe.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours. We also offer the Nearing Family Support Group. They have a peer-to-peer,
Peer-to-peer,
which
yep.
is 8 weeks for students that have mental illness. We also have offered the Nearing Connection and Recovery Support Group.
Good. NAMI, wonderful stuff. Family connection or family to family?
Yeah,
Peer connection, right? So family education support and then ongoing family support. And peer-to-peer is folks with conditions meeting with each other.
yeah.
Yep.
And it's an 8-week course, and then they also offer support, because I can do all
Great. Lovely. NAMI, Southwest Ohio, very good chapter. NAMI.
of them. Not that not Southwest Ohio, but the NAMI Urban Creators.
NAMI Greater Cincinnati.
That's a different one. We're in there. Yeah.
Become partners who see the issue, learn how to make treatment and recovery rewarding. Hey, you look better. Hey, wasn't that a nice weekend? The way you played with your kids. Boy, that's what I want to see. Okay? Not naive, but hey, let's get into treatment. And when we see progress, we will celebrate it. Where you get stabilized, where you, right? Improved communication, again, back to the I statements, back to the questions, back to the, right? Never to give up on what you expect for good treatment. But the questions and I statements to try to decrease, it's not your job, right? But if there is a trick, to try and decrease defensiveness and denial.
This pick a topic, but what I statement, what way, obviously the correct way of dealing with it, that take that same topic and don't use an I statement. And just give us an example of the same condition, but I statement is another way. What is the other way? I'm just, as I'm struggling with it.
Yeah, the other way is you have a problem, you're in denial about it, and you have to do this.
So it's a use statement.
It's a you statement.
That fair.
What quickly happens with you statements, anyone willing to get pointed at?
No, there's a book on it by Dr. Zagar or Levin Allen or something like that. I don't think I have a mental illness. Mammy has a free copy, they used to have a free copy on their national website that you could read it.
Oh.
So it's supposed to help, how to give your loved one the help and stuff we don't think they have.
I'm not sick, I don't need. That's the thing, I'm not sick, I don't need.
I'm not sick, I don't need help. Cool. Then, what is your health care issue?
Mine personally or just in general? My friends,
Have you managed your arthritis?
yeah, lots of surgery,
Did you see the doctor?
yes.
Okay, are you getting better? Have you been doing everything you've been doing? Is there a reason you haven't been doing everything you're doing?
Yeah.
How are you feeling as I need to use it as support? What's the experience of
Well, it's guilt, it's
guilt and?
guilt, accusation.
Good, all right.
They're talking about my turn weight.
Right, most of us,
Yeah, because they're like, oh, I am, yeah. I think you're doing everything with us.
you may be meant in a loving way, but it can just come out quickly as accusatory. Sorry for making you feel guilty. Right? You can do it fairly quick. Just have someone start pointing in your face and throw news statements at it, and you'll notice. Versus, I am concerned. I am worried sick about you. And also, I am concerned is not something someone can easily fight about. I'm concerned. Well, you don't need to be. Well, I am. All right, good. Improve communication, learn the specifics on how to access treatment and recovery resources. Again, this is sharing with each other everything we know, trying to get it. Sorry about the frustrations of finding good providers. They exist. Sorry if you've ever been to a peer group that was a real clunker. Move on. Right? I always tell people, shop your recovery. Just because recovery is there doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's good for you. Try it out, keep shopping.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
So when you have a loved one that keep shopping because they don't like necessarily mean not how the doctor is approaching them, but what they're saying to them. So they keep provider happy, provider happy.
Oh, okay.
So what do you do? You know,
So,
because sometimes they sit there, they don't, not necessarily sugar, but they don't really come out
mhm,
and say you're wrong
Good.
to them, you know, so they still think it's everybody else's fault and not theirs.
okay, so, great question on what happens if your provider appears to be, if your loved one appears to be provider shopping, right? So you have two issues there. You want to respect the autonomy of them trying to find who's helpful, but I think you're also saying, oh, I still feel there's a denial issue. And I would go ahead and address the denial issue. Hey, I gotta say, I feel like part of what's going on here is you're not really presenting the nature of the problem or the extent of the problem. Okay. Would you permit me to go with one, to, come to you with one of your providers, or just communicate with one of your providers? Oh, and get one of those releases that you are attending and that you are participating. What? I'm not in denial. Okay, but if you would just let me go, then we could talk about that. Does that make sense? If you're saying, oh, that's provider hopping, that's kind of engaging treatment, but not really engaging treatment. There's denials there. I would go ahead and just address the denial. My concern is maybe you're not aware, or maybe you're, but I don't think you're acknowledging the extent, and I don't think your provider can help you that way. Is there any way I can be involved? Right? But you need to back up certainly at some point and say, hey, one more provider. And after that, we have to have a different conversation. Cool. Let me get to self-care. Did that one. So as noted, so what's self-care? Self-care is easily mistaken as a spa day, right? It certainly can be that, but there's again, like other things, a little bit more fundamentals. So self-care with ourselves does start with acceptance. does start with, this is never what I wanted. And we've had losses. Right? And I need to be able to feel what I need to be able to feel about that. I need to be able to be angry. And know that anger is not an attack. I need to be able to feel discouraged. I need to be able to feel like, how do I cope with this? And know that it's not abandonment. I need to have the space to have the experience of the loss. Okay? Health disorder, grief, we feel for our loved ones, we have to feel for ourselves. We're going to work to honor our losses and keep shifting our dream, right? When we lose one dream, figure out another dream, figure out the dream that's there, or the dream that you want to be, and keep growing in your own satisfaction with recovery. Your loved one can recover, you can keep recovering. There's lots of good caretakers in the area. If anyone's ever had to be person caretaker. And I would argue, yeah, mental health needs to be involved in the concept of caretaker, right? I need to be able to be a place to be exhausted, to not be my best self. To feel hopeless, but not want to behave from hopelessness. Okay, so the first step of self-care, me. I need to be able to sink in the reality of this. And I need it to be filled with honor and enough time and space to process what I need to process. Okay. And then start reminding yourself that self-care is compassion and self-care is effective. Right? How do you help your loved one? You help it by your own self-care. How do you help your loved one? You help them by your own self-care. Doing your self-care will help repair damage. Doing your self-care will lower impact in the future. Doing self-care can feel selfish. You can be told it's selfish. Tell that person to get lost. Right? Self-care can appear selfish, but it's not. It will be the most effective way to care for your loved one or everyone else in your life. When you're on the plane and they start the plane and they say, if you lose oxygen, the masks are going to fall down. What do they say about the masks? If you self-harm first, even if this person is a child, even if this person has asthma, even if this person sees they lose this drug, you have to put your on first. It's a fundamental. That's self-care. That is a very familiar, very vivid, very specific version of self-care. Take care of yourself. Because that's the only way you're going to be there to take care of whomever else you choose. I saw a lifeguard training. It's crazy. I mean, it was by the beach too. Lifeguards have to do the same thing. We'll assume a lifeguard's a good swimmer. What's the first thing a lifeguard taught to do when going to help someone in drowning distress?
Protect themselves.
Protect themselves. Don't drown. Don't get into a situation where we now have two people drowning. Right? Harsh, rough, but absolutely. Self-care is. Yeah, we take good care of ourselves, we increase the chances, not naively, not, you're gonna do swell. Not naively, it's the best way to increase our chances with our loved ones. What is self-care? Self-care is what you want your best friend. You want your best friend to rest. You want your best friend, if they are exhausted, to rest. Since who here has been exhausted by mental health issue or the mental health issue of a loved one? Rest. You can do what you can, then rest. Self-care is recreation. You need to be able to do those things that refresh you, make you curious, inspire you, soothe you, comfort you. Right? Do not skip vacations. Get back to reading. Get to the gym, if you like the gym, get to, like, do your recreation. Okay? If things are so critical that you can't get to your recreation, then good, address critical. We can't do critical. I don't know, do you need to leave so that I can go to the gym? Right? I'm here reading peacefully on the back porch. If you disrupt reading peacefully on the back porch, you will need to leave. Right? If you can't do self-care, you have some sort of critical issue that you should go ahead and address. Guess what? You know, the guy at the presentation said, I have to do my self-care to take care of you in the house. And if your condition is getting in the way of my self-care, we have an issue. It's an issue that you can't be in denial of, and you need to get away from it. Does that make sense? Self-care comes first because it's the only way it's gonna work. And it looks like rest, recreation, and connection. Let's avoid isolation. Again, healthcare issues can cause isolation. Behavioral health that causes isolation, substance use causes tons of isolation. If you're experiencing these things back on the list of what happens to households, and you notice I'm getting isolated, do the opposite, connect. Call that person who's easiest to call that person who's most helpful. Think of ways that you have been connected in times that have felt healthier for you, and you do that with them. Best recreation and connection. That's what happens in healthy relationships, healthy households. Not happening. Start with yourself. Then you keep getting back to what's the best thing I can do for my life. All right. A few more minutes. I'm happy to stick around for anyone, happy to take questions, but just any comments, questions, whatever.
I just listening to you, Peter, you're really good, you're a good communicator. You always teach me, it's a lot, because we really have to get to know ourselves. And as a woman and caretaker, being a child, I think some of that, the self-care, I'm still trying to get it going on, you know what I mean? I want to do it more often, but, and I've been a good enabler, and I think just being put into this field for a living my second career, 11 years. I've been able to learn so much, but when I started, I didn't feel like I knew anything. And I had a partner that had an opioid addiction. I knew nothing, and I was enabling. And Al-Anon, 12-step, and Al-Anon really saved me. And I see the fruit of that over the years now. And I'm raising a child who's 13. And, like a lot of us have kids with ADHD and sensory impulsivity, lots going on, and in puberty. It's a tough, society's tough to be in, for these kids, let alone many of us today. It's just not easy. And I'm trying to teach and coach as I'm affirming for myself regularly. Respond and not react, Maria. Respond and not react. Take a deep breath. I'm coaching myself. I'm trying to get rest. I'm tired. I've got to recreate. I've really learned. I love to sing, so I've been going to karaoke. I love to sing. I'm trying to find something that brings me joy. And then the connection, having people in my life that I really feel like I can open up to and express and complain, complain, because I didn't grow up that was okay, So it's just a lot, it's such a process, this life and doing and trying to then helping another person. My ex-partner, now 10 years later from that breakup, after having brought home a newborn and a couple years going by and being in the denial, is doing better. Got into the right medication and looking at, started to realize some resources. But it was what it turned to, that's.
And like you said, I was confused. I didn't know. Does that make sense? A lot of those behaviors on that list there, the loss, the fear, the disrupted communication, the disrupted roles, right? Those behaviors in a way are designed to take away from us our awareness of, oh, I'm healthy. Makes sense? If your loved one is more ill than you are, keep reminding yourself, you're healthy. You're the healthy one. You're not better. You're not superior. You're not, but you are healthy. And then therefore, those natural instincts you're most likely having to say, hey, I think something needs to change here. Go with it. It's not a judgment. It's not a failure. A lot of the critical, chaotic, chronic, blah behaviors, right? They are very effective at taking away our experience of, oh, wait a minute, I'm healthy, and I just want to keep getting to healthy. I keep working at it as long as I choose. I will not sacrifice my self-care. And if I need to disengage more, I will disengage more. Yes.
I am an enabler and a mother, and I kind of overstepped my boundaries. I was not a good communicator with my daughter, and she told me that I was pushing her too hard to get better. And then something happened when I overstepped the boundaries. And now she's not taking me at all. And it's very hurtful.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked to her. I haven't, pushed her. I've sent her a few messages, but I don't know how to communicate with her. I don't think she wants me to.
Could be at the moment. I can't say it's not permanent, but I'd be skeptical that it's permanent. If you did feel like you overstepped a boundary and you want to go ahead and apologize and make amends for that, that's fine. If you're still interested though, in her engaging healthcare in ways that will be good for her.
She is.
Good.
She is.
Okay. So then I would just keep presenting the question, A, the celebration of it. Glad you're doing better. Glad you get recovery. I'm delighted for you. That's all I've wanted. That's all I've ever wanted. So glad it's happening. I would love to participate with you in the celebration of your health. Let me know, question, let me know if anything will help facilitate.
I just don't want to say the wrong thing, push her further away. She did say on Mother's Day, she said, we will have a discussion at some point. Happy Mother's Day, and I love you.
Oh,
But I'm thinking that has to be on her terms, maybe.
well, how about, thank you, but I would love that.
Yeah, I said, thank you, I love you.
Let me know anything that will help. When it can happen and when it does happen. Let me know what you would like from me that would help. If she asks you to do something that's not healthy, we're not right.
No, I don't think so.
But she asked you to do something that's healthy. She did what?
She posted this, this seminar on her Facebook page.
No.
Peter, it's
7:30. Anybody
Anybody wants to say, if you have questions, please feel free, just want to see about the
Same thing, folks online. Let me know if there's any other questions. Thank you all for anyone who's joined.
There, Beth, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question, I know you had several. Please feel free to do so.
Speaking of another resource, we actually go to Celebrate Recovery at Roots Cross. So a lot of this is very familiar to us. We actually come to see what new things we can learn, but when we're talking about the enablers for codependency, and things like that. So if there are, we actually have kids as well as a teenage group. We're one of the few that have a degree where we try to do that generational cycles with the younger groups, in addition to the adults. So that way the adults can come to work on what they need in that instance, and it's a hurt, habit, or hang up. So it's not necessarily drugs or alcohol or things like that. Hang up. So think of it as maybe divorce or depression and anxiety, grief. And grief is not always the loss of something, right, or someone. So all of these things, there's a lot of different groups that we have, both men and women. And then we also have the teenage program that waters it down slightly, but we still work on the hard stuff. We have real conversations. And then the CP as well, the children, and they actually still have some of the same lessons. So at the end of the day, the family can actually go home and talk about denial of that stuff, or, you know, hopeless, or whatever, like the different steps themselves. They can actually go and have a conversation, provide pizza and stuff, so that way it's more family gathering, community, things like that. So it is another resource. We meet on Fridays.
Which church are you?
Rivers Crossing.
Rivers Crossing.
It's right across from Kings Island. Yep. There are other CRs in other areas based on where you're at. Not all of them have both the landing, which is the teenage version, as well as the CP and the kids. But we do, so just if that's not an area close to, it's, the doors open at 6:15, food comes around 6:30. Praise and worship starts about 7:10, and we do our coins and steps. And then we do a teach, and then small group breaks by around 8:20, 8:30, and it ends at 9.
And it's free.
Yes, it's totally free. It's the best free therapy you can get, because you're all talking with each other.
My son is 8.5 years clean and CR is instrumental.
Celebrate.
You mentioned a particular book in a particular author, they're asking.
Oh, yeah.